People like to think they get to a certain age and they're all grown up. Well, if you're still blaming other people for how you feel and situations for how you feel, there's something wrong with your maturity. You're not taking responsibility for yourself. You're blaming. And you are creating suffering for yourself. You're doing it to yourself. Welcome to Satsang. Hello.
Hello. What is your definition of maturity?
Okay, it comes down to the ability and the willingness to take responsibility for yourself. Everything you do, everything you say, everything you feel. The highest levels of maturity are an understanding and a commitment to that understanding that you make yourself feel, that no one can make you feel but you, which takes away all the emphasis on blame. If you're taking full responsibility for yourself, you're not blaming anyone or anything for how you feel. That is a level of immaturity. And so the maturity level of the general population of Australia, by that standard, would be very low. Because people are constantly blaming situations and other people for how they feel. But I've had that understanding of maturity since I was 19 years old. I make myself feel, nobody can make me feel but me. You can do something terrible to me, but I'm responsible for my reaction. I'm responsible for the feelings that I may have as a result of that action that happens outside of myself. And so that removes victim-orientated thinking. And the removal of victim-orientated thinking takes you away from suffering. Because suffering occurs not because of pain, but when we resist pain. So if someone does something or something happens that touches you, and then you move to blame, rather than taking responsibility that you've made yourself feel, you're in a whole pile of trouble because you're creating your own suffering. And at the highest levels of consciousness before enlightenment, people don't suffer because they accept life as it is. They don't blame situations for how they feel. They don't blame other people for how they feel. They accept life as it is. And so maturity, to me, is such an important subject because it will make a difference between whether someone finds heart, whether someone wakes up. Immature people don't stand much of a chance. And so a lot of the teaching that I do is teaching men and women how to be adults, how to be men and women, rather than little boys and little girls pretending to be men and women. And this is not a popular subject because people like to think they get to a certain age and they're all grown up. Well, if you're still blaming other people for how you feel and situations for how you feel, there's something wrong with your maturity. You're not taking responsibility for yourself. You're blaming. And you are creating suffering for yourself. You're doing it to yourself.
What is the best way to develop maturity?
Get born into a family where your parents are mature, so you can role model off them. I wasn't that fortunate myself. So I had to learn to become mature after I left home. And I joined a club called Apex, which is a men's club for under 40. And on weekends we'd go out and build adventure playgrounds in poverty-stricken areas for underprivileged kids. We'd go out and we'd help some pensioner clean up their backyard, altruistic service. And a lot of these men were men. They actually were mature men. And even though I didn't grow up with that myself, I started role modelling off these men. I started copying them. And I copied them long enough for those patterns to become default in myself. Unfortunately, in our society today, our heroes, our football players, our rock stars, our politicians are all immature. So we don't have very good role models. Hence, we have a very immature population. But just for the sake of not suffering, how about being adult enough not to turn yourself into a victim every time something doesn't go your way, blaming someone else or something else for how you feel?
Why do you say that someone who is not mature has no chance of finding heart or enlightenment?
Because what's required for heart is openness, undefendedness. What's required for enlightenment is unconditional surrender. And if you're closing up because you're contracting as a result of victim-orientated thinking, you're leaving yourself out of the picture completely.
How much do you think the safety and comfort of today's life creates immaturity in people?
No, what creates immaturity in people is not comfort or safety. It's not taking responsibility for yourself. Not taking responsibility that you make yourself feel. Not taking responsibility for the things that you do.
How can I teach maturity to my children?
By being an adult and being mature. It's very simple. My kids learn how to be adults by watching me because I was mature and I was demonstrating that to them. Kids learn by watching you. They don't learn by listening to you. Anything else?
Yes. No, sorry.
Yes, no? That would be a yeah, nah, wouldn't it? One of the main things that destroys relationships is actually immaturity. Immature adults blame each other for this, that and the other, and as a result get angry. And anger is the great destroyer of relationships. It creates so much separation in people, it's not funny. People end up being bitter and resentful if they're on the end of anger. And anger cannot exist without victim-orientated thinking. You have to be blaming something or someone to be angry, because the blame is the fuel that makes anger work. So you have to be victim-orientated to be angry. And the more victim-orientated you are, the less chance your relationship's got of working, because you'll destroy it with your anger, with your blame, with your victim-orientated thinking, with your immaturity. Any questions? Any statements? Any challenges to anything that has been said here this evening? Or does anyone have anything they'd like to chat about? Yes.
Hi Vishrant. What's the best way to respond if someone is directing anger and blame at you?
I find laughing doesn't work. But that's quite often what happens. Once you develop a mind that is mature and it doesn't get angry, it doesn't go into that level of reactivity, you actually find anger quite amusing. It's so childish, and so you've got to hold back from laughing. But of course, if someone is angry with you and you laugh, they're likely to get angrier. So I don't care if people direct anger at me or not. It's none of my business what they're thinking. It's their business. They're hurting themselves, that's their business. See, when we get angry, we hurt ourselves. We don't just hurt other people. We hurt ourselves. It's like drinking poison and thinking that somehow it's going to hurt someone else. It's one of the most silly things we can do as an adult, to get angry.